All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're really excited to be here with all of you tonight to celebrate a book I've been really excited about since I first heard about it and saw the beautiful cover. It is called The Ephemera Collector. It is a novel by Stacy Nathaniel Jackson, and he is here with us tonight in conversation with one of our faves, Dr. Regina N. Bradley. This is a book that we were joking in the green room is more timely day by day, so we're going to get into that. But first, I just want to introduce Dr. Regina Bradley for anyone who doesn't know. She's an award-winning writer and researcher of the Black American South. She currently teaches at Kennesaw State University. She is the author of the critically acclaimed book chronicling Stankonia, The Rise of the Hip Hop South. She is also the editor of An Outcast Reader, a collection of essays about Outkast, and the co-editor of the third edition of That's the Joint, the Hip Hop Studies Reader, with Murray Foreman and Mark Anthony Neal. You can read more about her work at redclayscholar.com. So welcome, Regina. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. Good evening.
And the person of the hour is Stacy Nathaniel Jackson. He is a trans poet, playwright, and visual artist whose work has appeared in Electric Literature, Georgia Review, and New American Writing, among other publications. And he currently resides in Washington, D.C., and this is his first novel. So it is always a joy to get to kick off the celebrations for debut books. It's like truly one of my favorite things about being at Charis is getting to celebrate new work from people. And launching your book baby into the world is no joke. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to get out of the way and let Regina start digging in. But before I do, I just want to say to our audience, please feel free to ask questions at any time. You can do that by putting them in the chat, or if you look to your right, there's a little question mark icon. You can put them in the Q&A there, and I will gather them so that when the time comes, Regina can include your voices in her Q&A. So thanks to all of our audience members for being here, and thank you to both of you.
Thanks, ER. Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Hey. I'm happy to be here. Happy to meet you. Happy to be here. Happy to talk to folks about this book.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this book, so just bear with me if I start to ramble a little bit. But before we even jump into that, we would love to hear you read from the text of the hour. So if you would read, and then I'll start off our conversation, and then again for the folks who are joining us this evening, if you will put your questions, comments, snide remarks in the little question mark box, I will make sure that I address those to our author of the hour. So yeah, let's begin.
Best friends. At their beginning, at her end. Beth started at the end of a line waiting for espressos at the Huntington's Red Car Cafe. Xandria noticed her badge and dongle and hoped she was a new staff member. Damn time they hired more people that looked like me, she thought in silent glee. Beth started with the espresso mix-up. Cashew milk. Oh, sorry, this isn't mine. Hi. Hey, it's fine, I think. The new Black woman smiled, dimples for days, a tinge of flirt. Not her thing, she didn't think. Beth started with a walk to the upper bonsai court, an afternoon break from new ephemera intake. The California junipers and oaks are my favorite, an unfamiliar voice said from behind. Hi. Hey. A mutual outstretching of hands to entwine in a shake. I'm Anana. Saw you at the Red Car. Assistant curator, bonsai collection. Xandria, associate curator of American Historical Manuscripts, curator of African American Ephemera. Wow, a dual appointment. Nice to meet you, formally. There it went again. The tinge. This time in their palms, the surprise of Inanna's calluses, the self-assuredness of a good grip. Beth started with a visit to the archives, For historically significant material, show and tell, sneaky quiet. Xandria allowed Inanna to touch Langston and Octavia, to examine unpublished papers not yet exhibited to the public, blood letters to others, sent and received. This started with lunches, accidental in their beginning, a sliver of library gossip, disenchantment, really, a pending corporate takeover, an alliance. Best started with Saturday afternoons, the California African American Museum, Space Shuttle Endeavour, Southwest Museum of the American Indian, Griffith Observatory, LA County's Natural History Museum, La Brea Tar Pits, Roman's Bookstore, Skylight Books, Book of Soup. Best started with a walk around the Rose Bowl, one smoke-free Sunday. Best started with a dinner invitation, glasses of wine. Best started with, I miss my dad. Have you lost anyone? Best started with, it's hard to talk about it. I got sick. My dad died. Grandma died. My gramps. Different sides of the story. The dead, my dead, not all of them from COVID. Best started with, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Best started with, is it okay if we change the subject? Best started with, when did you really know what you wanted to do with your life? Best started with, what's your favorite color? Best started with, I talk to trees, don't laugh, some talk back. Best started with, I wanted to be an oceanographer before an architect, before a psychologist, before an artist, before a writer, before an archivist. Best started with, I wanted to be an anthropologist. Best started with, I never had a boyfriend. Best started with, I flunked kindergarten. It took me a minute to start talking. Best started with, I touched a penis once, a stranger in a movie theater. The theater was too crowded for me to sit with my mom. He grabbed my hand, I jerked it back. He grabbed my hand again, jerked it back. I felt helpless, shame. He came, I'm sure of it. I didn't know what that was then. I was 12. This started with, I kissed a boy I never talked to in school, rather. He forced his lips on me at a friend's party. I laughed in his face, or rather, in his mouth. Word got around, I blue kissed. Ridiculous. I never set the record straight. His unwanted touching after he pushed me down on my friend's guest bed, his weight, his arrogance made me sick. I was 12 too. Best started with, I'm sorry that happened to you. Best started with, I went to white schools and never felt beautiful. Best started with, I want to kiss you. Best started with, I don't know. Best started with, wait, don't go. Best started with, can I touch you? Best started with, where? Best started with, here. That's it.
Yeah, that was so good.
That's it. That's it.
That's it. That's all we need. Oh, it's nerdy. It's vulnerable. It's honest. It's like I literally was visualizing this whole conversation in my head. It was just absolutely gorgeous the way that you wrote that. I want to fangirl for a minute because before I even jump into, the novel itself, like you did your homework. There's so much research in this book. Like it's so very it's meticulous. That's what it is. And I'm just like, oh, Stacy not playing no games. That's how I was reading.
I have 200 pages with links and everything.
I
It's
said,
like,
I was like, is this a novel or is this low key a dissertation? It was so good. Like the sources that you use. So can we use that as like an opening up
sure,
question?
absolutely.
When you came up with this idea for this novel, what made you be like, Yep, I need to research Octavia Butler. I need to research the Black Panther Party. I need to research the response to Hurricane Katrina. I need to research all these different. So, as an English professor, an English nerd, I just want to know what the research process was like because it is so on point.
Mm. So let me say that it's not billed as speculative memoir, but it might as well be.
Mm. Okay.
And I wrote myself into it. And so Xandria is practically me pre-transition. So that's what I do. And and so because that's what I do, I thought it would be an Easter egg to myself and other folks who would see it that no, this isn't fiction, this bibliography, even though it's her bibliography that's, from 2020, so to speak, to 2035. Mm-hmm. But in fact, those references were used and they're real. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really, from a technical standpoint, that's actually how and I'm not going to say right, I'm going to say that's how I built this book, because it is built.
Yeah, there are layers. There are so many amazingly. I want to start with like a foundational layer, if I can call it that, and then we can like build from there. Okay. As we were saying at the beginning, we were saying it back in the green room. It's scary how accurate your book is as a piece of fiction in this current moment. The attacks on everything, everybody, right? That's not white, heteronormative, heterosexual, straight. Is everything is seen to be as a threat. And I could not help but put you in conversation with Octavia Butler's Parable series. So I was curious to hear about, what the connection you felt to Octavia Butler and why use her as like a foundational layer for this much larger story you're telling about collective and self-memory, especially in Black women.
So Octavia was born in Pasadena. And I was born in Los Angeles, but for the most part, I grew up in South Pasadena. The Huntington Library is located in San Marino, and literally those three places connect. They literally connect in terms of their borders. Octavia chose the Huntington Library for her archives, and so they are there. And one of the last things that my mom and I did, let me step back a little bit. I grew up going to museums constantly, and the Huntington Library constantly, and botanical gardens. This is just what we did as I was a kid growing up. And one of the last things that we did together before she died, we went to the 2017 show at the Huntington, and I saw her archives and nerded out and took pictures as she sat by and watched. And I know you mentioned the Parable series, but one of my favorite books of hers is Bloodchild and Other Stories. And why I love that is we get to see her process. In other words, she's writing like little mini essays after each story, and then another essay. And the thing that I feel about my character, Xandria Anastasia Brown, is that the character is a living, breathing archive herself. It's historical. As we enter the beginning of the book, she's 300 years old, and she's giving an interview at, hopefully it will still exist, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And in one of the last essays, Octavia says two things. She says, persist. And I think that's, I cried when I found out that she died. I didn't know. I do know a friend who was a friend of hers, but there's just a lot of people who feel a connection to her, like a real palpable connection to her through her work. and her speeches and her writing. So yes, Octavia is alive and well in this book.
Yeah, I was low key. I was waiting. I was waiting for it to be like a hologram of Octavia Butler or something like that. That was in the that was part of Xandria's secret archive. Like
No.
nobody else has seen this. But yeah, I thought. I mean, like I think that there is something very powerful in the use of Black women to remember. Um, and not just remember, but fight to remember. Like there was so much fighting on Xandria's part to be like, I'm trying to remember this. I'm trying to do that, right? Because when we're first introduced to, Xandria and Inanna, you're like, oh, they're besties. It's like, oh yeah. And then it's like you read the obituary and you're just like, oh no. Like it just hurt. Like I felt the heartbreak. Um, as we got.
Literally, can you imagine that? I mean, and this is not really, I mean, I don't have long COVID. I don't personally know people who have long COVID, but I know, and I know that long COVID, and many of us, COVID, we just, we're over it. We've forgotten and it's gone. It's years gone by. There are people who are still struggling with it.
Right.
And I had a friend who I texted. She went to an event of mine and she's like, I have a niece who is a reader and I think she would really love this book, but she can't read because she's got long COVID. Can you imagine not being able to read? There are so many different manifestations of long COVID and neurological problems and that kind of thing. But just Xandria suffering from grief, like, can you imagine? And I don't know the exact word. I'm not even going to try to quote myself. I'll paraphrase the narrators, but just like, what's worse? Forgetting your forever person, or not even knowing you even had one. I mean, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that twist. I was like, no, no. I literally put the book down. I was like, oh my God. I felt for her because I felt that. It was like, and then she passed on Valentine's Day. I'm like, what are you trying to do to me, Stacy? Like she passed on Valentine's Day. I was like, oh my God, really? But
I just want to say a little bit more about
please.
grief. I mean, if people, I'm sure that, there are many ways that people deal with grief, and that grief from loved ones. And it doesn't, it may not really go away. And that's part of what's happening here. It's not just, her health condition, but, and also when I was writing this book, she's going to kill me, so I probably shouldn't say it, but there's someone very dear to me that almost died, and I was able to bring her back. And so part of that feeling, I was able to get her back, but just the feeling of like being scared, just like around the corner, like, is that what? It's like a ghost. It's like the person's there, they're not there. So I was really trying to write that into the book.
Yeah. Since you brought up grief, we can still. That was one of the questions that I have. Right, is that grief in this novel is a form of haunting. It haunts her, right? I'm curious to hear your thought process in terms of like the different ways, because she's dealing with different types of grief, right? Like she's dealing with the grief of not being able to remember, the grief of losing her person, the grief of losing her mother, her father, and they all seem to like just kind of clash at the same time in so many different points in the novel. What do you feel is the connection between grief and the archive, grief and remembering, and why grieving in a way is a form of remembering, and why that was such a challenge in this novel?
Well, I think of the archive as it's a formal structure for holding data and things, and effectively history so others can remember, right? And so it was it was interesting, and I don't know. I didn't start with this idea of landing on, well, that would be a twist of someone not being able to just to do their job, right? She's passionate about doing her job, and she does it well, but she can't even remember. So how is she even going to do this?
Mm.
And grief serves as a healing and a trigger at the same time. So in the book, she's wearing a dog tag of remembrance. It's like, why would it be this dog tag? I mean, I guess it's a physical thing that she could wear around her neck to remember her parents. And through dementia-driven, kind of brain fog, it's like, wait, this is Octavia Butler's grave. Like, how is this happening? And it's really not happening. It's just the fog, the brain fog. So part of it's kind of an Easter egg, I think, for me anyway. A big fat one, in terms of someone who's an archivist, and also the grief being a trigger to sort of set her off. Yeah.
Yeah, and making her want to work harder. Like every time that she has one of these remembrances, she's deeper and deeper into the archive. Like, let me pull up this, and part of it is because she is passionate about being an archivist, right? But I think the other part of it too is her desperately trying to hold on to whatever memories, archives that she has, right?
Which is why she was willing to try an upgrade in artificial intelligence as a reasonable accommodation for work. That's what it is.
Yeah. The technology part of this too caught my attention on so many different levels. So it made me think about, this idea of Afrofuturism, right? The idea of Black folks willing themselves into the future. And I think one of the things that made this novel uncomfortable for me to read, as brilliant as it is like how close in proximity we are to 2034, 2035. So, can you talk about why in the future, but in the near future, and what that did as you were trying to write through the different time periods? Because you go all the way up to the 22nd century. So I'm just kind of curious, like why that Afrofuturist vision? Why was there a need to will her into the future? Like will her as an Afrofuturist in a way?
Because I think that part of what I'm trying to do and say, back to Octavia Butler's "Say Persist," is that we will, as a people, and those who consider themselves Afrofuturists in terms of music or literature or whatever your genre is to add to the canon, right? To create the canon. Obviously, Samuel Delany and Octavia Butler are already there, and Janelle Monáe is in there, right? In terms of contemporary stuff, but part of it is important to me. Again, I said a little bit of this is speculative memoir. I mean, I as a kid was reading Dune and The Left Hand of Darkness when I was in high school, and I'm like, Ursula Le Guin, and I'm like, they're not trans, but they are, because right, they can change. If people don't know the story, they can change their gender, and so those are the kinds of books that I was reading as a teenager. So that's part of the reason that this was important to me, to be, a hybrid literary fiction, speculative fiction, Afrofuturism, if that answers your question.
Yeah, because I mean, like, there's also the potential of it, right? Like possibility. And part of the underlying thing that buoys your novel is the possibility. It's the possibility of remembering, the possibility of being able to, move forward. I need to know how much you love Intozaki Shange though, because
Easter
because
egg, Easter egg, Easter egg.
I mean, because when I tell you I was obsessed with sassafras, cypress, and indigo in this book, I was like, yes. Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
But isn't that how they pick products these days? These names, Alexa, Siri. Okay, well, it's going to be sassafras, cypress, and indigo.
Yeah.
Why
Yes.
not?
So I'm just curious about, I mean, did you read the novel? Was it like, was there certain health bots had to do certain things? So like, in Shange's novel, it was like sassafras was the oldest one. She was making sure everything was in control. Indigo was the one who felt things. You got Cypress, who was the dancer, the creative. So I'm just curious about like how Shange fits into like how you're thinking about these technological advances that you talk about in this book.
Yes and no. So this was not. This was in the edit stage actually, where the comment, Siri and Alexa and whatever, if you will, and some other actual names of products that we use today. It's like, but people already have a relationship with those things, right? And so if you name them those things, they're not going to be able to see anything else because they already have a relationship with this technology. Air quotes relationship, but it's true. We can say the name and we know what we use the thing for. And I'll again use the word machine in air quotes. So I'm like, okay. And I don't know where it came. Yes, I read the book, but I hadn't read the book. I'd known of the book. I had not read in college or whatever. I hadn't read it, and so in the editing stage, I did read this book. I did not try to tie directly the different functions, but these things do have different functions. Some of them, a helper bot. One's a, Indigo is really a generalist, but I was thinking of the Apple phone, and so that's Indigo, and they all these machines, these algorithms, they all have their own point of view and very distinct point of view and distinct function. So yes and no.
I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was great. It was like they did different things. They would fuss. It was like they're fussing like, no, we told you multiple times. We've told you multiple times over. We can't do that.
Go to hell. Go to hell.
I just think it was amazing. I mean, like, there's so many different elements, and I really want to give you your flowers here of thinking through the Black feminine and what that looks like in technology and what that looks like in being a nerdy archivist and being in the library sciences and what does it mean, these different relationships that Xandria has with Black women, what that looks like, how that evolves. I know that there were some things that were on purpose, but it makes a little more sense when you say that there's a little bit of memoir in this. So, could you talk about like why the focus on Black women relationships and what that did to help to propel the novel forward?
Okay, well, I can say this. I used to be a lesbian.
What?
So I mean, I it's all true, and I'm a feminist. I'm a proud feminist. I'm a proud Black feminist. As a trans man, I can say that proudly. So I think that comes through. I do think that comes through, and how I grew up, that comes through. and also in a fictive kind of way. I mean, in my mind, Xandria is an archivist. She's not just an archivist, but in her creation of pushing against corporate influence at the library, she uses she uses her skill and her, I want to say inheritance. I don't think that's quite right, but if you grow up around folks, particularly Black women, who are outspoken about voting. In this case, her auntie worked for the Black Panther Party in terms of the, Ministry of Culture. Her mama eventually got involved with the Minority AIDS Project. I mean, when you're around folks who are active, I know this from my own personal experience. You just see that as a natural thing about to just, this is how it's going to be. You're gonna stand for what you think is right. And so she is an artivist in a sense, in terms of the things that she creates. And in the book, there are decals and things that, visual things that she has created to sort of push against this attack on the library. Although, unfortunately, because of the severity of her brain fog, she doesn't.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I want to slightly change gears just a little bit, in terms of just the structure of this book. So not only are you a novelist, you're also a poet, and that poetry came through in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Is just beautiful, just the lyricism of it, right? So I was curious about, did you see any tension between trying to write as a novelist versus writing strictly as a poet?
I was not trained, as in an MFA program or even undergrad, to be a fiction writer, and I think that was a good thing, because I wasn't thinking about rules that I was breaking.
Mm.
Um, I came to it as an experimental poet, and I don't really like that terminology necessarily, but I came to it as a poet. And I mean, I hadn't really written fiction since I was in high school, to be honest. And so, but everything I pretty much do, it usually has some hybridity to it.
Mm.
So that's how this novel came to be. In fact, the Dewada collection really is written as an epic poem. And the idea for the epic poem, that did come about that was like 18 years ago or something in grad school, but I just had a few pages, and I thought, I'm going to finish this. And I thought, well, how can I do this? I'm just going to weave this story together. I'm just going to weave the thing together. And my editor was really the one, unbeknownst to me and my agent, that Gina is not just a fiction editor, but a poetry editor as well at Live Right.
Mm.
And so we didn't know that. And I think that just landed with someone who could edit both and see both. That was just kismet. That was luck. So she helped pull more Dewada, which is more poetry. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I'm still just obsessed with the structure of this novel. So, like, even with the actual artifacts, like, can you, like, how did you have, like, there's this like certain the picture of Xandria's mom. You have the different maps, the different scrapbook sections that are in. Did you do those yourself? Like, did they?
Yeah, that's all me. That's all me. And back to the speculative memoir, that picture of Xandria's mom is intentionally blurred. That is a picture of my mama. And that is a picture of my mama at the Huntington. And a lot of
Okay.
those pictures are at the Huntington. And it's not, the thing is that I know, my reader doesn't have to know, but hopefully though, the way that it's presented is that there's some soul, there's some feeling there, there's some relevance to understanding Xandria through those images. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, these are great. These are fantastic. Like, it's like, pull up this artifact, and it's an actual, like an actual artifact. You're like, what? That is, I mean, like, that's so much, that's beautiful. There's so much effort in that.
I will say this. So apparently it's the 50th anniversary of Ishmael Reed's Mumbo Jumbo. I don't know if folks have read it. Look up Mumbo Jumbo. There are photographs and drawings, and I mean, he did this 50 years ago.
Yeah, Ishmael Reed is quite a read. You have to be in the right mindset to read Ishmael Reed. in the right mindset.
I'm not saying the content was influenced,
but no, but structurally, yeah. I mean, like just the experimentation of it, right? I mean, like if you're talking about these nuances of blackness, black identity, black womanhood, you have to be able to express them in different formats, and you do that, like different elements of what that looks like. The thing that also caught my attention is the short vignettes about these major historical moments that impact Black people. Can you just walk us through, like, you know, why these particular moments? Because every time you look at the timeline, it's similar, but something is something slightly changes. So I was just curious about, you know, thinking of this historical narrative that you're presenting. Why this particular type of historical narrative? How did you pick the events to include in those, in Xandria's, you know, kind of reflections on those as well?
So that's interesting. My editor, when she read it, she's like, she's a millennial. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess so. So, you know, I wanted, from the perspective of, as a millennial, what are the things that, the major things that a Black millennial, what would they be, what are the things they're looking at or keying in, or what would make sense to them in terms of impacting their lives and their trajectory of their lives, in terms of the decisions they're making, to, you know, what do they want to do for work, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then my mind just took over, and it just kept going for a few hundred years.
Just a couple of centuries. It's cool. A couple of centuries. But I mean, yeah, because I was like the Katrina section. I just, it, you know, again, broke my heart. 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina this year. I'm like, the stars lined up for you, Stacy. It really, like, to the point of this book is like, no, I already talked about this, and I'm gonna give you a blueprint to be able to talk about these things. Trayvon Martin, right? Didn't even have to name him, and I know because he was like, I started wearing hoodies and protests and resistance. And I think that one of the things that also kind of stands out for me about this book that is so good is the quiet resistance in this novel. It's not, you know, when you think about protest and Black folks, most folks think it's loud and boisterous, but there is so much quiet protest, from Xandria's mom protesting about her health, right? And in the way that so many older Black women, I'm fine. I don't need none of this. I'm grown. I'm grown, to talking about, you know, the outward resistance of the Black Panther Party, to simply trying to preserve these cultural artifacts. I just like to hear more about, you know, if you thought about the idea of quiet resistance and how that applies to the Black experience, and how that helps you to build the timeline that you present in the novel.
Let me say something about quiet resistance. I hadn't, I'm glad you named that. I hadn't really thought about that. And then I'm going to think about, now that I live in DC, well, actually, I saw this exhibit at the Library of Congress the Rosa Parks exhibit at the Library of Congress. Talk about quiet resistance, and talk about just the things that she kept, like on display on the back of a manila envelope. I think it was, her peanut butter pancake recipe, things like that, things she wore, I didn't know she got into yoga when she got older. There's this picture of her, doing this amazing pose that I'd never be able to do when she was like 70 or something. And so think about someone who, a real person who persisted in terms of actual resistance, in terms of the bus, but this quiet resistance in terms of continuing to fight and say and name the things that are important, right? And I really hope, well, in my mind, in my imagination, this is how, these are the influences on Xandria and what's so important, and how she's choosing to do that as well.
I love that. I have just two more questions before we open it up to the audience. So, audience members, if you have a question or comment that you'd like for me to share with Stacy, please put it into the Q&A box, which is located on the right-hand side of your screen. It's a little box with a little question mark in it, like Mario Brothers, because I'm a Black millennial too. So there was that. For the folks who are struggling to write, myself included, I feel like I'm still struggling to an extent to try to get back to the page. Just what would be your words of encouragement, and not only just that, can you tell us about how this book came to fruition? Somebody who's not, 21. No offense to the folks who are 21 who are publishing books, but for those of us who it takes a little bit more time to get the creative juices flowing and to get the confidence to come to the page openly and honestly, which is what you've done so beautifully in this novel. Could you walk us through your process, like how that came about, and why this novel? Why now?
I needed to write this novel. I needed to do something. I needed to create something. That's why now it actually took even though it didn't take a long time for me to write it, it took a long time for it to come through as a finished product. It actually took 3 years. So that's longer than most. I want to go back to Octavia and the persistence. I think of myself as an artist. I've always thought of myself as an artist. Even though I don't paint and draw or make sculpture all the time, there have been years of not doing it. I have the confidence to know that's who I am. And I'm going to find the form to create. So whether it's a play or whether it's a poem or, and obviously this is a huge challenge. I mean, many people who are fiction writers, even Roxane Gay, I was listening to a AWP, the Association of Writing Programs. I'm going to get mixed up a little bit. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And she said she's known for nonfiction, but she doesn't think of herself that way. She thinks of herself as a fiction writer. And she has her essays and, has done a short story. And I think she's got one novel that came out, and she was even talking about that as a struggle, to get there. I'm going to come back around again with respect to my process. I don't write every day. I'm more of a pressure writer. So if I look for something to submit, then that's when I start writing. And for me, right or wrong, I don't know. I guess it works. and I've talked to some other people, mentors and stuff. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm not Toni Morrison, who's going to get up at 5:30 or 5 every morning, and and write from 5:30 to whatever 7 days a week. That'd be great, but I don't do that. But I know that I have the confidence to know that I'm going to get there. I'm going to make something. I'm going to make something.
No, I love that. That's awesome. So opening it up for questions, comments about the Ephemera Collector. I love this book. I love it. I love it. I have to reread it. It was so much good stuff going on. I feel like I missed out on a lot of stuff, but yeah, I can't tell this is your first novel.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I have a question. Why can't you tell? That's an interesting comment.
Not trying to comfort you, but it's just the flow of the book. Like it seems like everything organically falls into place in ways that even if there was tension or pressure, it seemed to heal itself. Like it seemed to like work itself out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was like, oh, okay. And then also going back to the structure of the book, like that's just amazing to me. Just the structure is brilliant. It's brilliant. It's a little bit of lyrical writing. It's a little bit of poetry. It's a little bit of actual artifacts. It's a little bit of research. I mean, like you can tell that this was a humongous undertaking, but you pulled it off so very well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And hopefully it's it's reflective of, I think, of people. There's no one way, right? I mean, we're like a totality of things, that sort of impact our history, our personal history, and then how we present ourselves out into the world. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so we have a question from the audience. Was there anything you had in the book that you had to cut because it just wasn't working? Basically, was there a darling? Did you have to kill any of your darlings to make sure this book came out?
I'm going to look real quick. I think, yeah, I was thinking to prepare for this in the beginning, in the prologue, there was reference to P.T. Barnum and his, I can't remember them. Sorry, I've got some memory issues, but I can't remember the actual woman's name who was faking. He was selling her as the mammy of George Washington, real life. I'm not making this up. He sold tickets. She was just this old Black woman who was a slave, and she was going around. He used her. I mean, this is one of how P.T. Barnum got famous. That got cut.
Oh,
I mean, wow. It's, and I thought I wrote it in a sort of satirical, funny way when from Xandria's point of view. But that's an example of something that got.
Okay. Waiting on some other questions or comments. It's open, so let us know if you'd like to contribute something to the conversation. While I'm waiting on them, I guess I'll ask my last question, which is every writer's favorite question, which is, what's next? I cannot wait to read more from you. Seriously.
Well, there's two plays in the works that I'm working on. One's completed, the full-length play. Another I've just started, but they're both near future. They're both Afrofuturist. They're both dealing with subjects that unfortunately are not too far away, i.e. a world where teaching African American history accurately is illegal. African American art, I'm also a collector, is like contraband. You gotta hide it. the other play that is called the Codex of Narma. The other play I'm working on is called The Sojourners, where there's a queer, well, they're gender nonconforming. The woman is a female to male. The other is just gender non-binary. They're married, and their house, they want to create a safe house for folks who can't get hormones or abortions, that kind of thing. And so that's, again, it's not too far away from reality.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
The thing about plays, though, is that they can't just be Debbie Downer, right? I mean, people expect to be entertained.
well, I can't wait. I can't wait to see those plays, read those plays. Stacy, thank you so much. Thank you for your
Oh,
work.
thank you.
Thank you for engaging my nerdy fangirl questions.
I appreciate you. I appreciate them. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. ER, if you want to come back and
Yeah.
let
Thank
us
y'all.
know.
This is a beautiful conversation. Congratulations, Stacy, on your work. I want to let folks know that they can click this teal button at the bottom center of the screen to buy the Ephemera Collector from Charis. You can also, of course, buy Regina's books from Charis. We got them on the shelves. And it's a beautiful cover. We're just so excited for you, Stacy, to have your novel out in the world. As prescient as it is, we are really excited for folks to be with us watching tonight. So, I see Courtney Faye Taylor in the chat, fellow writer. So,
Hey, Courtney.
thanks for being here. And thanks to all of you watching at home. I hope that you all stay safe and well in this ongoing hard time, and take comfort from all of the many archives that we have, right? The ones that you're documenting, the ones that we're creating right now. I really do think that's such an important way that we survive what's going on. So thank you both so much. Take good care, and
Thank you.
we'll see you
Thank
next time.
you. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.